everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Weekly is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. You go into MyBookie.ag and use the promo code, either NFL Picks or MMA Weekly, and get 100% cash bonus back. So make sure you check out MyBookie.ag. I'm your host for the boxing show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to bring in my co-host. First up, since we were talking about bookies, we'll bring up John Einreinhofer, who is our resident bookie. How you doing, John?
Mike, good to be here tonight. Having a good day, having a good night. So what could be better than finishing out with some boxing? And I've got the MyBookie AG odds right in front of me now. So
all right,
ready to roll.
They are a sponsor for our boxing show now, and I'll explain this to you guys later. But we can make some money on this. So everybody, I implore you, MMA Week or MMA Picks or NFL Picks, either one, or you go to our website, thegruelingtruth.net, and just click the MyBookie link, sign up, and cash in everybody's pockets. And my next co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
Fantastic. I'm always happy to be on. So, Mike, John, let's talk some boxing.
Yeah, we're all excited about this, and it just tells everybody that none of us have a life. But let's go ahead. Or we're just old, which Jeremiah has no excuse, John. We're old. He's young.
Hey, man, I got two kids at home, okay, and a wife to please. It's not that easy.
And a wife to please. You know he's younger than us now, John.
Anyone that's got a wife's got a wife to please, right?
Well, yeah, just as they get older, you got to please them in different ways, usually credit cards and stuff.
Like I said, man, you can please a woman with 4 inches. It doesn't matter if it's MasterCard or American Express.
Yeah, and I still claim that, women don't understand that when they use those cards, you have to pay that money back.
It's a foreign concept to a lot of them, but you got, if you want to keep them happy, All
right, we will start off. We'll talk about a couple of heavyweight fights that happened this past week. We had Robert Helenius, who looked like a sparring partner, who basically lost his fight to Dillian White. We'll start off with John. John, what was your take on the fight?
Well, you're going to see it's going to be a theme for me tonight, but it's honestly my take on last weekend. Not impressed by Dillian White in the fight particularly. Helenius, as we discussed last week, not really quite what he was. I thought.
And Helenius looked like a sparring partner, though.
I thought he came with a little more than he did. Obviously he had an abysmal performance against Duhaupas. He just could not quite. I thought he just couldn't quite stand his ground. If he could have really stuck his jab and really stood his ground and hit White with some power shots. White was wide open, and you see him throwing off balance. Not particularly impressive. He's there to be hit and hit hard when he comes forward. And Helenius, though, just had to keep backing off. He had a few moments, but he was just always backing off, and he couldn't stand his ground and land with enough authority to do enough to win the fight. But nothing impressive to me out of either guy there. I didn't see. Even in this weekend heavyweight division, they keep talking about it coming on, but when we thought it was, it's really not, as we discussed last week. And,
I think it's a lot better than it was 5 years ago, but it's still crap. I mean, you got 4 or 5 guys that can fight, a couple up-and-comers, and the rest of it's crap.
Yeah, I agree. Better than it was 5 years ago. There is some hope. There was no hope 5 years ago.
No, 5 years ago it was basically Klitschko and Povetkin.
Right, exactly. And
Shannon Briggs chasing them both around.
Yeah, just what I got out of these two, though, my final thought was this is not legit top 10 stuff. That was my final take on it.
No, and I've never been impressed with White, Jeremiah. I mean, White's biggest claim to fame is he clipped Anthony Joshua, but then he got knocked out. And, I mean, the thing is, with heavyweights, anybody can clip somebody and hurt them. But Dillian White's not really shown me anything to make me think he was a serious threat to Wilder or Joshua. Did this fight change your opinion at all?
Absolutely no. Dillian White, he's a good fighter, but actually his biggest claim to fame is not only rocking Anthony Joshua, but beating him in the amateurs. And, of course, that's...
Yeah, but nobody cares who beat who in the amateurs. That doesn't mean
right.
A lot of guys have beaten people in the amateurs and then get the crap baked out when they fight them professionally.
No, but yeah, I'm saying that's part of the reason why there was hype surrounding the fight itself. I mean, again, there are plenty of examples of that. I mean, you look at Cotto. I mean, when Cotto was coming up, and it was Cotto's birthday not long ago anyways, but yeah, Cotto fought Muhammad Abdullayev, and he lost to him in the amateurs, beat him in the pros, lost to Kelson Pinto, beat him in the pros. There are plenty of examples, but I'm just not that impressed either.
And there was also, if you remember, the Great White Hype.
Right. Yeah.
You remember the movie Great White Hype, right? The white dude beat the black dude in the amateurs, so I know that's one of Jeremiah's favorite movies ever, John, so I figured I'd bring it
up. Not one of your more memorable boxing movies, Mike.
It was a classic boxing movie. Actually, it could have been based on a true story multiple times.
It might be up there with Southpaw. I don't think we're going to put it up there with Rocky and Raging Bulger.
I don't think Southpaw was very good either.
No, it wasn't.
The preview was better than the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay, but my problem with the movie is the acting wasn't that bad, but the whole premise of the movie is Southpaw, right? So in the end, he uses a move where he switches stances and connects with a punch, and I'm like, I've never seen anything like that in my entire life of watching boxing. It was just absurd on the face of it. I just couldn't get into it. But
I never even noticed that because I'd lost interest in the movie about a half hour in.
Yeah, you were probably already snoozing on your...
I watched Chuck. Did you guys see Chuck?
I did not see Chuck yet, but I want to, being from...
Chuck is actually a pretty solid movie.
Yeah, Liev Schreiber's a pretty good actor. I mean, I really like the voiceovers he does for HBO, and I think he's a boxing fan. I think that's why he does all this stuff. But I was listening to Liev Schreiber do an interview on NPR months and months ago, and he didn't talk too much about the boxing itself, but he did talk about how Chuck Wepner was there, and particularly the bear scene. Wepner was asking Schreiber if they were actually going to let Schreiber get in with a bear and fight him. But for safety's sake, they didn't, and he was a bit disappointed. But, anyways, Dillian Whyte, probably not on the level of the movie Chuck, probably more on the level of Southpaw, yeah.
Okay. We went a long way around to get back to where we are, but now we're going to go to a portion of the heavyweight championship that was decided last Saturday night. That was Carlos Takam being stopped in the 11th round by Anthony Joshua. I know, John, you weren't a big fan of Joshua's to begin with, or I don't know whether to say that or not. It seemed like it seemed like you had come around and you were farther where he might be worth watching as opposed to last year when you talked about him.
No, I thought Joshua is the number. He's the number one heavyweight. It's just, just people might be getting a little carried away with him. I've never.
Yeah, but see, my problem is this, John, and I'll put it this way to you. I mean, I still have huge question marks about both guys. Did Joshua do anything to impress you or make you think more or less of him in this fight?
He did more to make me think less of him in this fight because this is his 20th fight now. He didn't have a long amateur career, but I have him as the number one heavyweight. I still do. I think the legit title's vacant. But I thought this, to me, was really about the worst he's looked. Takam was basically in survival mode for the first 5 rounds. Then I think Joshua was failing to press him so much. It initially looked when Takam got cut, I think the commentators were right at first, the Americans on Showtime, when for a brief second they said, is he looking to get out of there? And despite the fact he hung around for 5 more rounds, I think he looked like he was. But Joshua was doing nothing to help him out of there, as the old-timers would say. When the guy wants to get out, you got to help him out. And that's what I did not see at all from Anthony Joshua on Saturday night, and that I found very disappointing. I mean, a guy 6'6", 254, fighting a smaller, in today's world, heavyweight like Carlos Takam, who's 6'1", 235, and he's 36 years old. Povetkin's already stopped him. It's not like this guy's not, George Chuvalo, like people are talking, guy who's never been stopped or hurt or something like that. And Joshua, and the guy's coming on 12 days' notice. You press a guy like this right off the bat and get him out of there. You up your stock. you make the fans want to see you even more, even though Joshua is popular, very, very, very popular, of course, in Great Britain especially, and he's got an American TV deal. Showtime's high on him. It was not the kind of performance where you blow a guy like Takam out, which to me you should at this stage in this situation, and then you up your stock. People look at you as a devastating destroyer. A lot of people correctly thought really got stopped too soon. I didn't worry about that much because Takam was going nowhere, and I didn't think he was in there to win the fight. I just thought he started generating a little bit of offense after the fifth round when Joshua was doing nothing to help him out of there. So for me, this was a thumbs down on Anthony Joshua's stock increasing. I still have him as number one because his resume is better than Deontay Wilder's in terms of opposition. To me now, what Wilder needs to do Saturday night, he's going to be in with a guy who I think will be faded after the first fight between Wilder and Stiverne, because I thought Wilder gave him a beating, but that Stiverne is much more, to me, of an offensive threat than Carlos Takam. So if Deontay Wilder can do what Anthony Joshua didn't do, which is really get an impressive stoppage where you really blow the guy out of there. I'm not saying necessarily Wilder will with Stiverne, but I'm just saying, to me, there's a bit of an opportunity here, especially because Stiverne's even less of an underdog than Takam was against Joshua. So
yeah, but I think Stiverne and Takam are very similar at this point in their careers.
Yeah, I think that there's
I was just as disappointed with Wilder against Stiverne as I was with Joshua against Takam, to tell you the truth.
Well, see, I was impressed.
Those guys are fighters, though, that if Wilder and Joshua are that good, guys like Stiverne and Takam are going to get taken out a lot quicker.
No, I think Stiverne was even money with Wilder in the first fight with the odds makers. Joshua was a massive massive favorite against Takam. Mismatch level, a guy on 12 days' notice. Stiverne is a dangerous offensive fighter. Wasn't as faded as I think he'll be now.
Yeah, but see, John, that's another thing, though. 12 days' notice. There's a big difference between the style of Kurbut Pulev and Carlos Takam also. So that could have played in effect to it also.
Yeah, but not to the degree you got a 36-year-old guy on 12 days' notice compared to
Stiverne's like 40, isn't he?
Stiverne and Wilder, we're talking about a few years ago. Stiverne and Wilder was an even money fight coming in, and Stiverne bringing a lot of offensive firepower, the kind of offensive firepower that Takam doesn't bring.
See, I don't see Stiverne having a bunch of offensive firepower. I mean, I've seen him do it against Chris Arreola, and that was about it. And I think Jeremiah would have a whole lot of offensive firepower fighting Chris Arreola. That's why I compare the two fighters, because neither one, Stiverne and Takam, neither one have really impressed me.
Yeah, no, if I'm taking this over, I would say they're about on the same level. I mean, Takam defensively, I think, is the better of the two. Offensively, I do think Stiverne is the superior. I think his hands are a bit quicker. I think he's a bit sharper with his punches. But again, it's like, but Takam, I think, he has a tendency to come in better shape. He's more consistent with his training methods than Stiverne seems to be, and I think that's why you get these up and down performances by Stiverne, because I liked what I saw from Stiverne when he fought Arreola twice. I mean, he was quick, he was powerful, and then you see his performance against Wilder where he pretty much just follows him around, barely throws any punches, and then he gets a majority decision against Derek Rossi, a journeyman. Plenty of these guys have...
Yeah, I mean, my point is this. 5 years ago, Stiverne's probably a better fighter than Takam, but right now I think Takam would take Stiverne if they fought, just because Takam's going to show up in shape.
Well, right now, though, I do think there's a chance... Let me just add, when you're talking right now, I do think there's a chance Stiverne's done. I think that Wilder gave him a bad beating. He was hospitalized after the fight.
Yeah, but I think the reason Wilder gave him a bad beating was because Stiverne has never taken this that seriously, and it could have something to do with just Don King following you around running your career too.
It's possible, but I think that Wilder gave him a bad beating in that first fight, and he was in the hospital afterward. He only had the one fight that was unimpressive against Rossi that Jeremiah referred to. He's been basically inactive. He was going to fight Povetkin. He had PEDs. Povetkin had PEDs. He is now Stiverne now is in his later 30s. I think that he could be done going into the ring Saturday night. I'll agree there this time around, and that's why I think Wilder needs to take care of business, because the fight went from even money the first time to Stiverne's a plus 10-10. So the odds makers think something's changed a lot too, and they have to know what they're talking about.
Then they saw the first fight where Wilder dominated him because Stiverne's just not very good.
I agree. That plays a big role in it, but I think it's the fact that Wilder dominated him the first time, combined that with the beating and the layoff, that makes Wilder such a significant favorite. So now Wilder, to me, has to do what Joshua didn't do, which is maybe I shouldn't even say has to, because it's boxing and it just depends how marketable you are, no matter what happens. But I think it helps your marketability. Fans want to see impressive knockouts. They want to see guys take care of business. Joshua let Takam hang around too much Saturday night. I thought he hurt his stock a little bit, and maybe Wilder can up his if he just blasts Stiverne out of there. But can he do that or not? I don't know.
All right, so I mean, like I said, I'm not impressed with anybody here in the heavyweight division, really. So
yeah, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, the thing about Joshua is, I'm still on the fence. I mean, I think you both can be onto something where there's a lot of different ways of looking at this. I mean, Joshua, came in the heaviest of his career, 250.
Yeah, I actually was slightly more impressed by Joshua. And that's because I don't think Takam is an easy out for anybody. He wasn't when he fought Povetkin. Povetkin took him out in the 11th round also. I just think Takam is kind of a guy that's just there. He's in shape, and it's going to be hard to blast him out quickly for anybody.
Yeah, I think he does some good things. I mean, you look at his inside fighting, and he blocks. He takes a lot of the punches on the arms. He ducks. He does a lot of good things well. I mean, and this is the reason why he's been a top 10 heavyweight for half a decade now. I mean, maybe I'm wrong there, but Takam is definitely, not only did he have a good performance against Povetkin, and of course that was back in 2014, but I thought he beat Mike Perez. I think a lot of people did. So, and Takam had a good performance against Joseph Parker. I mean, the guy's certainly not a bum, and you could tell that he had been training probably lightly, but he had been training before the Joshua fight. My guess is that he was informed that, hey, you might get a phone call if Pulev gets an injury. But the thing about Joshua for me is there is a lot to like there. His hands are quick for a big guy. His technique is sharp. I was impressed by the way he was, the way he fought on the inside. So he didn't do like Vladimir Klitschko or like a lot of these big, tall guys. He didn't grab Takam on the inside, even though that probably would have been more beneficial to him, wearing on Takam a little bit. But he fought on the inside. He's pretty accurate. Defensively, he's pretty good. Again, I still have the problem that he doesn't move his head enough, and he's going to get clipped one of these days. But he does take him on the gloves like Takam does. I mean, so there are some things to like. Maybe he'll learn from this. And, afterwards he did say, I was expecting a Kubrat Pulev type guy. But here you got to get Takam out of there. It's just one of those things where Takam, he's declining physically, so that should give you the opportunity to stop him. But I think there's some good and bad to be taken out of this. I still think there's time for Joshua to develop into a good heavyweight. But again, with Wilder and Joshua, I'm still on the fence. I still don't know what's going to happen. And when we're talking about where the division's going to be, the fact that it's better now than it was 5 years ago, it's not much better. I mean,
no, it's just today we have one fight we want to see, where 5 years ago there wasn't any, really.
Yeah, we knew, Vladimir Klitschko proved his dominance over Povetkin, and that was pretty much it. Now we have Luis Ortiz, who might be 43 years old. A lot of these Cubans lie about it.
He might be 57. You never know.
He might be. I mean, and he tested positive. From what I understand, the WBA took him out of their rankings because of the test results. So now we've got Luis Ortiz, who's kind of on the back burner. We've got Alexander Povetkin because of his test. He's kind of on the back burner, which is unfortunate because in terms of talent, Luis Ortiz and Povetkin may be the best too. And then after that, you have Joseph Parker, who's, he really hasn't done much to impress many of us. So outside the top five, Povetkin and Ortiz they're on the out. I mean, they're not going to be around for very much longer. So once they're gone, what do you got? You got Joshua, Wilder, and Parker. It's not doing it for any of us. I'm afraid to say.
All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about the fights coming up this next week. And, John, if you get the MyBookie odds up, you want to bring up the odds for any of these fights, feel free. Remember, guys, you can go to NFL Picks. You click that, you get a 100% bonus for betting on the fights. You can check it out on thegruelingtruth.net. Click the MyBookie banner, and it'll take you right to it. We will start off with Sergey Lipinets against Akira Kondo, who is 29-6-1, and that's probably not the way they pronounce his name. But as me and John talked off air, it's probably the last time we'll ever have to pronounce it on here. Anybody here think that there's a chance Lipinets could lose this fight?
No, I don't think so. And they don't have a line posted on that one, and they have this weekend.
Oh, and by the way, the first Wilder-Stiverne fight, Wilder was a 7-5 favorite.
Yeah, it was going back just about even money.
I was just bringing it up. Go ahead.
Right, yeah. So, but then, yeah, Lipinets, I know Jeremiah and I both like him a lot. I hope to see him in the 147 welterweight picture, and that this is a stepping stone. You know, he's ready for a better opposition than this Japanese fighter he's fighting, who's got 6 losses, who's going to be no threat to him whatsoever. I'll throw out a little bit of an example. This is something, and Mike, you want to go back to the old days. I think this is the kind of fight we would get. To me, this is something that we're kind of missing. Even if arguably you might like Lamont Peterson a little better as a fighter, in the old days, like Errol Spence is looking for an opponent. To me, he'd be on network TV on a Saturday, and they want to throw somebody in there that's going to give them a surprise fight or be dangerous and give the fans their money's worth in the arena and on TV. You take a Lipinets and put him in there with them. I mean, Lipinets is fought on PBC. To me, that's much more interesting than Lamont Peterson, who can't hurt him. And instead, we have Lipinets against this no-hoper Japanese fighter with 6 losses. We've got Sean Porter against Granados. These are fights we don't need. These just waste our time, because with fighters only fighting 2 times a year, when you're going to have 1 or 2 of those fights in certain years be time wasters, that doesn't do anything for the fans or the development of the sport. And I don't need Lipinets to be crowned with an alphabet belt against this Conde fellow.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Jeremiah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the trinket I could care a little about, but, I like to stay informed, and, Kondo, however you say his name, again, it's irrelevant. I like to stay informed and see who these guys are fighting, because, Lipinets is a guy that I like. I have high hopes for him. But, I just couldn't bring myself to watching any footage, because when I looked at his resume and took it at face value, he lost to Ricky Sismundo, and in the process of me writing my article on Yves Ulysses Jr., the Canadian prospect in the same weight division, I actually watched him versus Sismundo, and Sismundo is a scrappy little Filipino kid, if I'm not mistaken, but he's like a top 50 guy, maybe top 100 guy, and Kondo himself, when you look at the rankings by BoxRec, is 54th in the world. I'm just scratching my head here. Why are we even watching this fight? But Lipinets will destroy the guy, raise his arm, throw a trinket over his head, and he'll be happy. But we've got to make the fights. And, now that Terrence Crawford is moving up to 147, hopefully these guys can get together and make some decent fights, but unfortunately the division's looking a little lackluster at the moment.
Well, and that brings us to Sean Porter and the aforementioned Adrian Granados. Granados. I can tell you that I don't mind this fight that bad, but I'd rather see Porter against Spence. But with Granados in there, I think it will be an action fight. It'll be worth watching. But I think the problem here, Jeremiah, is Granados is really a lightweight, or he should be at 135 or 140, not 147.
Definitely. I agree. And I feel kind of bad for the kid, because... Yeah,
I think he could be a world champion at 135 or 140. Or at least have a chance.
He'd certainly have a chance. I mean, if he's hanging with Adrian Broner, who we know has won multiple trinkets, he's got the opportunity. The unfortunate thing is he's like a lamb to slaughter. They keep throwing him in with these guys.
Yeah, his biggest win was probably the fight, Amir Aman?
Yeah, that was a big win.
Yeah, and now Imam is getting after doing literally just about nothing after that fight. Now Imam's getting a shot at the vacant WBC title. What is going on here? I mean, who's running the insane asylum? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, even as a hardcore fan, how do you wrap your mind
That's
about
the way it's always
around
been.
It? Jesus, yeah, I know. But anyways, I feel bad for the guy because he's got to fight. He's fighting a murderer's row of guys, it seems like.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he's a good fighter.
Guy.
He's just at the wrong weight. Hell, I think Broner was at the wrong weight. Broner should have been at 135 the whole time, or 140.
I agree, and I think even John would agree that if Broner had stayed at 135, maintain his composure, maintain his training camp, stayed in Colorado Springs and stayed away from all the dumb stuff, he'd be the Laniel champion at 135, and he might have carved up a nice little legacy until, maybe Mikey Garcia comes around, maybe he loses to Jorge Linares. I don't know, but I think up until those guys, maybe he's the crown wearer.
I think Broner at 135 and below, even if he would have fought as a featherweight 126, with the power he brought at those weights, he could have.
Yeah, he had legit talent.
A long run. Yeah, he did.
Definitely. Yeah, and not only that, he had the size. I mean, when you look at his fights at 135, he actually went to the body pretty well down there. I mean, he still goes, but the punches just don't have the effect that they used to. But yeah, he was whipping guys. And the Ring magazine made a big mistake, but they forecast into the future, and they're like, this guy's going to be special. And after he beat the British guy at 135, they put him at number 5 on the pound-for-pound rankings. Now, in retrospect, that was a horrible move, but, this is the kind of stuff that a lot of people saw from him. And even now you see some people are like, oh, well, if he gets it together. No, he's way past that. There's no coming back. The train has already departed. But, back to Granados, I'm hoping, they can give him somebody soft. And not only does he a good scrappy fighter who gives you a good night's work, he just seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, I think he's he's got heart in the ring. He's a tough guy. He can do some things, but I don't quite think of as much of him as maybe you guys do. To me, when we had less watered down stuff with all the belts and the weight classes 35 years ago, he would be what you'd call a club fighter. I do not see him as being maybe nowadays with so many belts and everything, but you go back in other eras, I would not see him being a guy getting.
Yeah, 8 divisions. Granados is not a top 10 fighter in any of them.
Right.
No.
But he's the kind of guy that can upset a top 10 fighter.
Yeah, he would have been that kind of a guy in the old days. Like, he would have been a club guy who maybe had...
Yeah, maybe he upsets somebody, then maybe he gets a title shot while somebody's trying to take a breather defense, stuff like that.
Exactly. That's exactly what he would have been.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call that a club fighter. That was just, it was a time where you had less divisions. I mean, then I think top 20 guys are legit big-time fighters.
Yeah, but something more along those lines. But, I do agree in the sense that, at least Granados does come to fight, and Porter comes to fight. So
yeah, I think it'll be worth watching, unlike a couple other fights on this card.
Yeah, it may give us something. And Porter, even though he's a tough guy, and you got to like his heart, let's face it, in certain fights, he gets very crude and sloppy. So
yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
We hope it's not that. We hope it's not that Porter that shows up Saturday night.
I don't mind crude and sloppy, as long as it's exciting. It's better than watching two guys stand there and look at each other.
Better watching heavyweight.
Do we have odds on Porter and Granados yet?
No, they don't have odds on Porter or Granados posted yet either.
I know they'll have it by Friday on mybookie.ag. The next fight, Dominic Breazeale against Eric Molina, the Funky Cole Molina. I don't know. I don't really think much of either one of these guys. What's your take on this, John?
Well, I like certain things about Dominic Breazeale. I like his punching power. He's shown heart against Mansour. He showed heart against Izzo, and he showed some degree of heart just standing there taking a beating against Joshua. Although he finally submitted, as Teddy Atlas might call it, but from getting hit with heavy shots. But I thought that was an impressive performance by Anthony Joshua because he just didn't let Brazil get anything off. I thought it was much more of an impressive performance than this Takam fight, even though Takam had much more experience than Brazil at the world-class level.
I think that might have been a fight that Joshua took a little bit more seriously than Takam, though.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's possible too. But Brazil, I mean, he's shown us the action he provides. That he's a guy you want to see fight, but the problem is you don't want to see him fight Eric Molina. Eric Molina was completely mismatched against Joshua. Got annihilated in one round. I thought even though he hung around for some rounds against Wilder, I don't think Wilder should have allowed that. I don't think Wilder was in good shape for that fight. And then
I thought that was the fight that maybe made me think Wilder was not that good, to tell you the truth.
I thought Wilder was out of shape for that fight. So,
229, he wasn't in too bad a shape. But, I mean, there's no way I feel like, yes, Carlos Takam was a lot better than Eric Molina. Molina made it into the 9th round with Wilder.
Yeah, Takam is better than Eric Molina, no doubt. But I don't think Takam would have made it into the 10th round with Wilder from what I saw him last Saturday. So, but getting back to Brazil, Brazil is a guy you want to see fight. I think when they're putting this together, he was supposed to fight Stiverne, and then Stiverne moved up, so to speak, to fight Wilder. Stiverne and Brazil would have been a hell of a fight. I mean, Jeremiah and I were talking about that. I mean, that would have been a great card when you were going to have Wilder and Ortiz, and then Stiverne and Brazil. I mean, PBC was doing something great there. That was going to be the action card of the year. But now we end up with Wilder, Stiverne 2, and Brazil and Molina. I mean, just a huge.
Yeah,
huge
I'll tell you what, John. I look forward to Porter Granados than the rest of them, and they probably won't even put them on. Well, is Porter and Granados going to be on the Showtime portion of the card?
Yes.
Because I know they got 4 fights listed here. So, because to me, Porter Granados is the best matchup of the night, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, we're getting that. But I mean, Brazil. I think when we saw each of these guys against Joshua, which even though I like Brazil, honestly, he was not competitive against Joshua. But, you could see, let's face it, you could just see the difference in toughness with Brazil compared to Molina. And Brazil hits harder than Molina. He's bigger than Molina. So I think what the matchmakers are thinking here is that Brazil's defense is so sloppy that, Molina throws that looping right hand and maybe he'll land something and you'll get something like Brazil Izo. But I would think that at this point Brazil should be at a level where he can get Molina out of there without that kind of excitement. But I got to admit, you never know with somebody like Brazil who just doesn't have any defense. So I guess we watch it for that reason. But as somebody who likes Brazil, you'd like to see him make this an easy one, just get Molina out of there quick and show he's at least improved himself.
All right, Jeremiah.
Well, John said just about it all, didn't he? I mean, I like Brazil too, and back to what John was saying about Brazil versus Stiverne and Ortiz versus Wilder. That was where it was at. I was excited to see that because I knew there was going to be action there, and now we've got to deal with this. I wouldn't mind seeing Brazil fight, a guy like Dillian White either. I think he would make White fight, and I think that would be interesting. Brazil, he's a borderline top 10 guy, but after this, I think Brazil, may get a shot at one of the better guys. I don't know. It's hard to say. But, yeah, I don't know. There's not really a whole lot going on for me.
Brazil.
Molina's just – I don't really care for Molina. No, go ahead.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
all right, guys, it brings us to the main event. All right, we're done talking about Molina. All right, Jeremiah, you're the one that ended the conversation, so I don't want to hear it anymore.
Molina.
The funky cold Molina. All right, that brings us to the main event. Deontay Wilder fighting a rematch for some reason against Bermane Stiverne. What's your take, Jeremiah? Is there any chance Stiverne could do something here?
Yeah, of course. It's heavyweight boxing. There's always a chance that somebody could land the shot that ends it all.
Like a real chance. Not a fairy dust, John Tate, Mike Weaver, 15th round kind of chance. Which I've only seen happen once in a heavyweight title fight in the last round.
I don't know. Has anybody heard anything about Stiverne's shape? Again, when he lets his hands go, But then again, he's talking as if he's showing up in shape and that, it's going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he talked with it before the first fight, too.
Doesn't everybody talk that way as if it's
I mean, right now, if I was supposed to fight Saturday, I'd tell you I'm in great shape, and the only shape I am is round.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be a bigger mismatch than it was in the first fight. I think if Wilder, back to John's point back when we were talking about the Joshua fight, he's got to make a statement here, because what's going to happen is if he goes out there and destroys Stiverne, who is a tough guy, by the way, he sets the tone, and he helps breed enthusiasm for a showdown with Anthony Joshua. And I'm hoping we can have that fight early next year. Unfortunately, it sounds as if Eddie Hearn wants to, make some stupid defense against Kubrat Pulev, who we don't really need to see fight, and they're just going to put it off a little bit longer, again, which we don't need. That Joshua and Wilder would be fine now. We don't need this building.
Well, I think the big thing there is they, for some reason, want Billy and White to fight Wilder.
Yeah, I think
so I would think the catch there is they both can cash in with an easy defense and then fight the big fight later on in the year.
Yeah, and I suppose they're young enough. I could deal with it, but it's not what I want. I want to see the best fights now, especially in a division so terrible. But anyways, Wilder's got to go out there and make a statement, and I'm hoping he does early, and I'm expecting he'll try it.
Yeah, same thing, John. Do you think that Stiverne has any chance at all? He is 39 years old, and Derek Rossi was rough on him.
I'm going to be a little contradictory because, I like Wilder better than most people, and I agree with what Jeremiah said and I was saying earlier. This is a golden opportunity for him to make a statement. I think Stiverne should be done from the beating Wilder gave him in the first fight in the layoff, and that Wilder can put pressure on Joshua. I think we need to see Wilder-Joshua next by blowing Stiverne out. But with that said, getting back to your question, Mike, does Stiverne have a chance? For some reason, with his offensive skills, even though they're not going to be what they were, I feel like he has some chance. And in some fights with, him being a plus 10 underdog, I'd be saying, forget it, there's no chance. I'm going more on gut here than anything else.
And see, John, this is why I'm not impressed with either one of these guys, because either one of these guys fighting Stiverne, I feel the same way you do.
Yeah,
which tells me that neither one of us think either one of these guys are really that good.
Well, yeah, as much as I like Wilder, I don't think he's just like everybody else, I guess. I don't think he's a perfect product. To me, the Wilder we need to see, and it's the only fight, ironically, he can get a stoppage, but he could drop Stiverne, is the Wilder we saw in the first Stiverne fight, where he weighs in at 219. I compare him to a poor man's Larry Holmes, a modern version, 6'7", with a 1-2. And, Larry Holmes wasn't big on hooks. And, Wilder just 1-2. He's got the big right hand. Larry Holmes had a good right cross, not the one-punch power Wilder has, of course. But, that's where I'm just seeing some similarities. But we don't see
Wait a
Wilder.
second. I think Holmes had more power than Wilder. Wilder knocked nobody out that's worth a crap. Come on. Larry Holmes knocked out people like Mike Weaver that I don't think Deontay Wilder could stand in the ring for 9 rounds with.
What I'm looking at there is, and I think Larry Holmes' right cross was underrated, but it's that Deontay Wilder, has a one-punch type power that Larry Holmes.
Yeah, against guys that aren't that good.
But still,
this is the thing with both of them, with Joshua and Wilder. We all hear about how hard they punch, but I just watched McCown go 11 rounds. Stiverne won 12 rounds. And, I see the one-punch power. It's kind of like saying Mike Tyson was the hardest puncher ever, but you're only watching highlight films of his first 20 fights. You don't see Razor Ruddock as hard as he can, and Razor Ruddock still standing at the end.
I think that Wilder's got one-punch power. But, sure, Stiverne really is the only real significant legit top 10 guy on his resume, but I think, even just in the way he's knocked some people out, you see the one-punch power. He did leave Liakovic twitching on the canvas after the one shot he hit him with, and, you saw him do it to Spielka.
Yeah, but Liakovic wasn't anything. Liakovic was 10 years earlier.
he was definitely past his best, but
and it's debatable how good he was 10 years earlier.
I thought he was
all right,
but still, so there at least there's a guy that was a name, but Kenny, he's got to. This is really where he can kind of prove something. Even though I think Stiverne, I'm still going to stick with it. I think Stiverne's probably going to prove to be shot going in with the layoff and the beating he took against Wilder in the first fight. But Wilder's got to then, like Jeremiah said, Stiverne is a tough guy. He's proven to me he's a tough guy. And, Wilder's got to get him out of there impressively, especially if he's lagging slightly behind Joshua on the radar screen of attention. It's even more important for him. And to me, Joshua did not do that against the Com. And, Wilder's got the opening here in terms of the marketing war. Now he's not going to surpass Joshua, of course, with the way boxing is in the U.S. right now. But a blowout win, a very impressive knockout over a tough guy like Stiverne. At least he can make it look like Joshua's the guy running. If Eddie Hearn doesn't want to put Wilder right in with him as 2018 starts, and I think that helps you with the fans, and it helps you with the call for the fight, pressure of the fans to try to make the fight. And Showtime's going to want the fight because Showtime's got both of them.
I'll tell you what, John, my take on this fight is this. The reason they may not want to get is because Wilder has not caught on in this country.
Well, I think that's why the pressure is not on Hearn to get this fight made yet. Is that
because you need Wilder to step it up. And it's not that Joshua has outperformed Wilder or he hasn't. It's just the fact that he won an Olympic gold medal, which right there put him on the fast track. And number two, he's in England, which is boxing crazy. So, I mean... And number three is they almost have to fight this fight in England right now.
I agree with all those 3 points. I thought that after watching Joshua the Com. One thing I did think is if I'm Deontay Wilder, you want this fight, you got to put the pressure on for this fight, but you probably have to say, hey, I'm willing to go to
and I think he realizes that. I mean, you'd have to be a moron not to.
I think you got to do that now. I mean, if you can get that kind of interest, and hey, you want to prove you're the best. Sure, it's a hostile environment, but if Wilder really thinks he's superior to Joshua when he should, and I believe he probably got that confidence, you go over to Great Britain and you take that fight and you make that your signature fight. You make that you be the Hagler fighting Alan Minter. In other words, you make that your.
Tim Witherspoon going to beat Frank Bruno.
Right, Tim Witherspoon bringing Bruno over there. It's been done by.
Well, actually, every American that went to England between about 1910 and 1990.
That's what I was going to say. That's that part why I always say that they want.
Really, 1910 to about 2000. But.
Exactly, because we remember that stuff. That's the way it was. It was like almost laughable because it was just a matter of course, and those guys couldn't pick up any titles. So that's why they liked when you had 9,000 title belts created. And that's why
they'll take the IBO and the WBU and run with the damn thing.
Exactly. That's why you get that all over with a lot of British and Western European fans. That's where that comes from. Is the era of domination when Americans were just going over there who were champs and knocking these guys out. But real Wilder, right? You want to kind of, hey, if you're going to be a throwback and you're going to try to help boxing's popularity in the U.S., sure, go over to England and beat Anthony Joshua in front of 75,000 fans on Showtime, and you'll at least take yourself a long way to doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Good, don't get hurt though. Don't get hurt though. You might get that the Com type stoppage.
yeah, that's true. After you
ever think maybe the ref was just bored and wanted to stop it so they could go home?
Maybe.
I was really bored of watching it, so I didn't really get upset about the stoppage because I was done watching it like 3 or 4 rounds earlier. I just kept watching it because I felt like I had to.
Well, I thought the Com started to perform. I thought the Com started to perform pretty. I actually gave him a round. I gave him the 9th round, and I thought that Takam was coming on a little bit. He looked like he started to feel it, later on the fight. But the stoppage to me was really just to protect that perfect win to knockout ratio. That 19-0, 19 knockouts. They had to get the 20-0, 20 knockouts. I didn't see the stoppage at all. And even Takam was like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, he did have him hurt a little bit, but I didn't like that one.
All right. Do we have any other boxing news we want to talk about, Jeremiah?
Yeah, so I just wanted to throw a few quick things in there. So Dmitry Bivol is fighting this weekend. He's fighting for some vacant stupid trinket too. He's definitely a guy to watch. And a couple things that just popped up in the news feed. So Alexander Povetkin will be fighting Christian Hammer for a shot at Joseph Parker. That's interesting. I expect Povetkin to run through Hammer, and then Povetkin versus Parker, I think, is an interesting fight. And then the last thing I want to bring up is that, again, in the news feed, so we've got Billy Joe Saunders versus Dave Lemieux. I think a lot of us think that's an interesting fight. Well, Oscar De La Hoya told ESPN Deportes, quote, "We will have to wait to resume negotiations until after Lemieux-Sanders. We will talk, analyze things. These negotiations take time, and they are not easy. After the fight, we will think about it, come together as a team," end quote. I don't know what's not easy about making a rematch. They already did it. I'm sure that Golovkin's side has no qualms at all about making that happen. So I don't know what he's talking about here. And unfortunately, Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy might move to secure a fight with David Lemieux and, Alvarez if Lemieux wins. And I think that would be unfortunate.
All right, and that brings me, I tried to get Abel Sanchez on because I saw this story before we came on. I did get him to answer the phone. He did confirm that is what's going on, and he thinks that they're trying to not have the rematch in May. They're trying to fight Lemieux. What's your take on it, John?
Yeah, I agree that would be a shame. To me, the biggest fight in boxing that exists right now is Golovkin-Alvarez 2. And
I thought it was Mayweather-McGregor 2.
Yeah. No, not, and especially not on Cinco de Mayo. So, Oscar wants to do the Mexican holidays for the Canelo-Alvarez twice-a-year fights. It fits right in. No reason not to have it. It's the best fight that can be made.
Yeah, and I think if they give that fight to Lemieux, I think if I was Triple G, I would just go elsewhere and not even mess with Canelo anymore.
Well, then he does at least have to think about what else he might want to do rather.
I mean, he's already beat him once. 90% of the world believes that, so why you got to fight him again anyway?
Well, I think that Alvarez beat him in the first fight, and I think that Alvarez will beat him more easily this time. Possibly.
Yeah, I love the way Alvarez ran for most of the fight, too.
Yeah, that wasn't running. That's what you call boxing there.
Oh, it is? The last 6 rounds was boxing? Usually it's what happens when the bully's chasing you on the playground trying to take your lunch money.
When you make a guy miss and you make him pay, that's boxing. That's what Canelo Alvarez was doing all fight.
Man, I'll tell you what, you must have watched a completely different fight. I don't know. We'll let Jeremiah break the tiebreaker. Who do you have winning the fight, Jeremiah? Whatever Jeremiah says goes.
Right now, I had Golovkin like most people.
But Jeremiah had him winning I think what do you have it, Jeremiah, by 115.
He had it 7-5. I had it 8-4. That's not that big of a difference.
But 7-5 in a fight that could have been 6-6 or 7-5 for Alvarez.
I don't think it could have, because when I watched it again, to me there was 4 rounds that Canelo hands down won. There was, I think, 6 rounds that to me Triple G hands down won. So the 2 rounds that could have been even, maybe make it 116 or 115, 115 or whatever. But I just think that when you look at that fight, it was kind of like a Hagler-Leonard, where, Hagler kind of gave away the first half of the fight and then had to make a late run. I don't think it was a complete mismatch. I don't think it was a complete blowout. But to me, when I watched the fight originally, I scored it 116, 112. The closest, I watched it 3 other times after that, and the closest I could ever get it was 115 to 113. And that wasn't just because I was cheering for Triple G, because I actually have no problem with either guy, because neither one of them are Adrian Broner or Floyd Mayweather.
But that was a fight you could easily give Alvarez the first 3 rounds, the last 2 rounds. Then I think he picked up at least 1-2 in the middle. I just think in the long run, if Triple G doesn't lose anything before they fight again, I think more aggressive Triple G that goes to the body, and I think that he will get to Canelo. Canelo just beat the hell out of Triple G's body in the first fight, and I think Triple G took a beating in the first fight where he won't be the same in this rematch, and everybody will say he's old, which he is older, and that's going to affect.
Well, you said he was old before the fight.
Yeah, I'm not. As I said, it's truth. There's no doubt he's older, but he took such a beating to the body. He took a lot of headshots. You saw his face bruised up after the fight. That he won't be the same for the rematch.
Yeah, I know Canelo is one of the biggest punchers in middleweight history.
No, but it's just he put plenty.
You know what? My son punched me in the nose when he was like 4, and it broke my nose. It didn't mean that he hit me hard enough to hurt me. He just hit me right.
Nobody's going to question that Golovkin's got a great chin, including me, and nobody should question that Canelo Alvarez has a great chin, and I certainly wouldn't. So it was two guys that can punch and can really take a shot. So, but I just think when you take Golovkin took more shots, and he took a lot of body pounding, and when you take that at his age, it has even more of an effect. And I think his final hurrah probably will be as close as he got to Canelo in the first fight, and I don't think Canelo would definitely stop him in the second fight, but I think he's got a shot to stop him.
Once again, John, 90% of the people thought Triple G won the fight.
Well, I don't know if we'd say 90%, but
who else on fight night did you see tweeting that they thought Canelo won the fight?
But we don't judge fights that way anyway.
No, we don't. I mean, this is what we do judge fights by. Is this though? I mean, what we do. So Adelaide Byrd judged the fight 118 to 108.
Right, and Teddy Atlas.
So how did she judge the fight? My thing is this.
And Teddy Atlas.
There are like 20 or 30 people on Twitter that I respect their opinions, like the Michael Monteros, even Dougie Fisher. And out of the 30 guys, I saw almost none of them that had Canelo winning that fight.
And virtually all of them picked Golovkin before the fight.
And so you picked Canelo, which is why you said Canelo won then.
Can use the same argument against me, no doubt, but there was a lot more people that picked Golovkin before the fight than picked Canelo Alvarez.
Okay.
Well, you can pick a fight and you can still score it as objectively as possible. I mean, you could rationally pick a winner, pre-fight and still go into it with as little bias as possible. But I mean, the point remains is that this fight should happen. It should happen in May, and we shouldn't have to put it off for another, Yeah,
and my point, Jeremiah, is this. If they put it off, that means they do think they lost this last fight.
Well, I mean...
There's no reason to put it off longer other than to let him get older.
Well, what did Oscar De La Hoya score the fight at? Even him, I think he scored it a draw or 1 or 2 rounds in Canelo's favor. I can't even remember. But, yeah, I mean... The point remains, and to me, it sucks because it's a built-in excuse, but Golovkin is, 35, 36? I mean, when you're an aggressor and you've had, 400 fights total, you're not going to be the same guy. And I actually think that Golovkin is past his best, and unfortunately, so in my opinion, Golovkin has been past his best for years, maybe half a decade or more. At
least 3 years.
Well, so your physical prime.
That's just given the benefit of the doubt, though, Jeremiah.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. And the fact that he's having close fights with Jacobs and Alvarez, a lot of people are like, oh well, he's just upping his competition. In my opinion, it's a mixture of him being old and him stepping up in competition. Yet, in most people's eyes, they felt he outboxed Daniel Jacobs and Canelo Alvarez, and I think that's a pretty extraordinary thing. So what would he have done in his
prime to him?
Well, I think he was probably quicker. One thing that I noticed about Golovkin is his timing just doesn't seem to be as good as it used to be. He just doesn't look as sharp as he used to be. But I think
that's usually the first thing that goes too, Jeremiah.
Well, and I think he looks. Well, I mean, a lot of us were watching the Daniel Jacobs fight and wondering why he wasn't throwing as much. And sure, some of that was Daniel Jacobs' tactics, but I also think it's a product of age, right? The mind doesn't click as quick as it used to. He doesn't have the hair trigger brain that he used to, especially for somebody who's not a fast puncher. I mean, he's never been accused of being speedy, so he relies a lot on timing. But again, the fight's got to happen. We've got to have some sort of conclusion. and putting this off for another year, it just doesn't do it for me. And honestly, part of me wished that Golovkin would have just thrown in the towel after the first Alvarez fight and like, you know what, forget it, I'm done.
Okay, well, and the thing is this. If you remember right after the fight, I told you when I called you, I said there's no way Alvarez fights him for at least another year.
Well, I mean, if and again, this very well might be the case. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how negotiations go. But when you hear Oscar De La Hoya say, you never know, we might take David Lemieux in May, I'm not into it. I mean, David Lemieux's a good fighter. He's fun to watch. He's got huge power, but he's not on Alvarez's level. I don't know if they want to win some trinket and
I would really have a hard time thinking that they really care about trinkets right now.
They do. They do, though.
Unless
I know
trinkets with money attached to them.
Right, but I know Alvarez said, fuck off WBC, but then what did he do afterwards? He went down to 154 and grabbed some stupid WBO title off Liam Beefy Smith. I mean, that fight was nonsense in every sense of the word, and yet he still did it. They still care about belts. And I don't know if they see it as a marketing angle or what. I don't really give a crap. I mean, honestly, I just want to see the rematch. I don't think it was
about belts there. I think it was because they didn't want to fight Triple G yet, so they fought Beefy or whatever the hell his name is and still made $5 to $10 million.
Well, so I think we're both right here. I think it was both. Right? So what, they were saying, oh, well, physically Alvarez is not a middleweight yet. Clearly, after watching Alvarez and Golovkin, he was physically a middleweight. He'd been physically a middleweight for years. So I think it was about both. They wanted to say, hey, we're not quite there as, physically, and then win a trinket, right? So they did both. But, I mean, the fight's got to happen. It's got to happen. I mean, if they put this off for another, 7, 8, 9 months, it's poor. It's just poor showing on Golden Boy's part.
Yeah, we all agree this fight has to happen in May. There's no debate there to me. For the good of the sport, it's the highest money maker.
Yeah, because anything after May, John, it's just tainted.
I agree. This fight should just happen in May. There's just no reason for it not to.
I think they could fight in December. It wouldn't be bad with me.
And I think the same with Wilder and Joshua. Wilder and Joshua should be in the first half of 2018. There's no need for any
like I said, I see the Wilder-Joshua thing because one's real young, and the other one's still young enough that you to make this fight, enormous, you need it to be enormous here, too. But the only problem I see is this. I think they should make the fight now because of this. I think both of them have enough chinks in their armor. Somebody may be able to knock one of them out and ruin it. But also on top of that, I don't think there's anything Deontay Wilder could do to be any bigger than what he is right now. Just because of the competition.
And I think the way U.S. boxing's set up, let's face it, except for the rather fluky way Floyd Mayweather became a big pay-per-view sell, which he was not early in his career. He wasn't until he fought De La Hoya. That's the thing that's kind of overrated, is he got into the De La Hoya fight, and then all of a sudden he became a pay-per-view star somehow. He didn't draw anything much before that.
Well, before that, the only time he drew, I think, was against Gotti, and Gotti was the draw there.
Right, and Gotti was the draw there.
But the thing is this, in most of Mayweather's fights until the last 5 or 6 years, the draw was the other guy.
Right, and why I'm saying that about Mayweather is it's frankly an indictment of the popularity of boxing in the U.S. and the ability to sell right now, and we're all fans and we're all Americans here, but that's the problem is we start to think of the sport, even a lot of times we go back to the golden era 35 years ago, but even if you go back 20 years, you could at least have an American guy like a Holyfield, or Tyson was still around and George Foreman was back. Guys who at least could carry a pay-per-view and you could build a fight. Really, it's not that Wilder personally, it's the sport. I agree. There's not anything really that Deontay Wilder can do to make this bigger in the U.S.
The only way you can say boxing right now is if Tommy Morrison showed up without AIDS and was 20 years old.
Yeah, even Morrison,
seriously, acting like he's related to John Wayne, wearing the red, white, and blue trunks, was in the Rocky movie. That would sell today, but that's about the only thing I can see out there that could save the heavyweight division.
That's true.
And it is an example of what PBC was trying to do, because Morrison was on ESPN and the USA Tuesday night fights every couple of months.
Well, so was Tyson. That's how they built them both up. They'd put them on.
And
they would have some devastating knockout against a guy me or you could be competitive against.
Right.
And that's how they beat him or built him.
And that's how Foreman made his comeback. But you don't. So I liked what PBC was trying to do. I didn't like the haters, and I was with them because of the reasons we're talking about. Al Heyman had it right, and I'm not going to hate on Al Heyman like a lot of these other people do, who I think are just jealous because the guy's trying to make something happen. But the evidence now with all these fights on Showtime, and they've all disappeared now from the basic cable and the network, is that it didn't work. So now we're back to where we were 3 years ago, where we have the problem we're talking about. Deontay Wilder can't get enough exposure in the United States to build up his end of a fight with Anthony Joshua, so he's got to wait on her. And
and if you look at it, the Mayweathers, De La Hoyas, the last guys that were huge stars, what were they? They were Olympians that did well in the Olympics, right?
Right, because people were still watching the Olympic boxing.
Yeah, but Olympic boxing went to crap. The problem now is, even if you took it back to the way it was, nobody's going to watch it because it's been crap for 20 years.
Exactly, and that's the problem we've got. That's exactly where we're at.
And, if you look at Deontay Wilder, if he'd have won a gold medal, he'd be a little bit more popular, but he would be nowhere what Anthony Joshua is with a gold medal in England.
No. Right, no way.
Because they don't have real sports like American football in England. So all they got soccer, which is, it's soccer.
Yeah, well, nothing else to say about that.
Yeah,
it's soccer. I do like rugby.
Yeah, rugby is definitely a man's sport.
Yeah.
But in essence, what PBC was trying to do was the right idea, where the idea would have been, unfortunately they just weren't having him in that many good fights. But, if you would have had a Wilder, if it could have gone on for more years, like, you had Wilder on a few Saturday afternoons, a few Friday nights, and he's fighting.
Yeah, but don't you think, John, the problem may have been when you put a Thurman and a Garcia, you got to pay them a pretty good chunk of money.
Yeah, right, and that's why Al Heyman was over-criticized, is he had to, and Jeremiah and I have talked about this a lot, what was impossible for Al Heyman, I don't think it was that he was stupid or foolish or anything like that, it's that he had to try to do what we're talking about here within the existing framework. In other words, he had to take fighters with him, keep them happy, pay them enough the way they were paid under the old system to keep them happy, but then try to do it where you could build it up and get them on free TV long enough.
Yeah, but see, the other thing, John, is this. If you remember in the 70s and 80s, you also had a built-in time slot where you knew you could see it because you had ABC's Wide World of Sports, you had NBC Sports World, you had CBS's Sports Spectacular, and almost every Saturday or Sunday, at least one of them had a fight on. You knew you could see it there. Today, everything's so drawn out. I don't know when the last time I saw a TV guide was anyways, but unless you're a hardcore boxing fan, a lot of times you don't even know that the boxing's on.
Yeah, a lot of people did complain about that they just didn't know when and where to find it. You didn't have quite that regularity like you used to have. But again, the idea was right, to try to get it back to where guys got enough eyeballs watching them in the millions that if you did it for a few years, in other words, PBC obviously now was not able to, but let's say somehow money-wise they would have been able to do that for 5 years. It might have worked. You might have then had people know who Deontay Wilder was, and then he's going to fight Anthony Joshua and people are interested. But you just couldn't get it where the guys were on there frequently enough. And like you said, Mike, you got to pay these guys under the current system enough money. I don't think and then you had the Ali Act out there. I don't think the Ali Act was designed, for what Al Heyman's doing. In other words, it was really to prevent some of these scams they used to do in the old days where, the promoter just saying he's the manager to get paid twice. Nobody accused Al Heyman of ever trying to do that. Everybody said that Al Heyman, for the most part, was good to his fighters. You see the fighters themselves say that. But then because he was really, let's face it, he was basically the promoter behind this, so he had to bring promoters in to comply with the Ali Act, and just all the headaches from the 35 years of neglect, and it's just too much to overcome, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I still think, if you look at it, Wide World of Sports, if you had a fight on, say, Oscar Bonavenus fighting Zora Foley or whatever, you also had, barrel jumping on ice skates before that. So all the big barrel jumping ice skating fans would then watch the boxing, too, so you converted new fans, John.
That's right. See, that's what tells you how popular. This is for anybody younger. It tells you how popular boxing was. They used to.
Oh, that was good stuff though back then. And then you would get the motorcycle racing on ice with the spikes in their tires. That was good stuff. For Evel Knievel.
But it was boxing. Boxing was the carrot that was carrying all.
Yeah, but it used to piss me off because they'd have like gymnastics or figure skating on, and the show would be like 4:30 to 6, and I'd turn it on at 4:30. My dad'd say, "I don't even know why you start watching that because you know nothing's coming on till at least 5 o'clock."
Yeah, they used to have the famous thing that came out every 5 seconds. Coming up, boxing.
Yeah, they were lying because it was still 20 minutes away, but my 10-year-old ass was still glued to the TV trying to figure out why these figure skating girls didn't have any boobs. I didn't know it was because they were all 12. But
yeah, after you got finished watching the balance beam of gymnastics, then you got boxing coming up soon.
Yeah, and then sometimes I wouldn't even believe it was coming on and it would be on. Plus, you know, they don't fight from prisons anymore. Who doesn't remember James Scott from Rahway Prison?
Now that just could not happen today. I still look back at that with amazement. You can't say that it wasn't a different era.
Oh, it was awesome though, because I think I remember watching like 5 or 6 fights from Rahway. NBC's Sports World always had them on.
Yeah, remember it's a New Jersey State prison.
Rahway State Prison.
Yeah,
because hell, he fought Yaki Lopez, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, and then I think he fought Jerry the Bull Martin on there. It was good stuff.
Oh yeah, and you got to see all the inmates sitting in their jumpsuits in the crowd. They got to the fight. That was the.
They come to the fight, and they go back, drop the soap, and have a good time.
That was the good. I remember those were the good old days. And my family said that's why it was then Dwight Braxton before it became Dwight Muhammad Cowie. That's why he was not intimidated by Scott, because he had served his own time in Rahway.
Yeah, he'd already been at Rahway.
He'd already been in Rahway and learned to fight.
I still got my beta tape of that fight. I taped it all. They had the interviews with him. They had Braxton going back to visit the old inmates. Some of his friends were still there. It was kind of sweet and heartwarming. Until one of them tried to shank him. No, I'm making that up. But, all right, we got to wrap this show up. I mean, we're like an hour and 15 minutes in, guys.
I know.
Well, we had to get back to the James Scott from Rahway days for 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, we need to do a show about that. Where's James Scott? Is he still in jail? I thought he got out.
We got a few shows to do.
Yeah, let's find James Scott. We'll start doing a special boxing show, boxing debate show anyways, because John Raspani wants to do it too, just to listen to me and John Einreinhofer argue about everything.
Yeah.
Because I think he's pretty sure that we just choose different sides so we can argue. And it's really not true. It's just John's wrong about a lot of things.
Well, there's got to be some more. There's got to be some more.
Like that Oklahoma State's going to lose the West Virginia pick.
Yeah, I was thinking that as I sat in the rain in the stands and saw it slip away Saturday. My own pick did slip through my mind. I must admit, but I did say David Sills was going to be a surprise star. So I'll think about that one more than West Virginia over Oklahoma State.
Well, of course, because it's one you were right on. Just like I'll just bring up Canelo and Triple G since I was right. Triple G won the fight. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. There's no more words to be said. The show's done, all right? But no, because I got to do like the NFL Pick'em show, which takes like another hour. You want to do the NFL Pick'em show with us tonight, John?
What time is that going to go on?
It's 18 minutes from now.
Now maybe I'll pass on that one.
Ah, you big sissy. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. Anybody that is a sissy out there, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I want to remind everybody to go to thegruelingtruth.net. Click on the mybookie.ag. You get a 100% cash bonus. You can use NFL picks, MMA picks, CFB picks, and get that 100% cash bonus from thegruelingtruth.net. I want to thank, of course, my co-host. I want to thank everybody that listens to the show every week. You can hear us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends